Hello there and welcome back to The Little Life of Gab. For today's video, if you hadn't already guessed from the title, we are going to be talking about what I read in May. So to give you a little idea of what we're going to be doing, I'll say the title and the author, I'll say whether I read the physical edition or the Kindle edition, and then give you a little bit of a synopsis, maybe the reason, possibly why I have read it. Then I'll talk a little bit about what I thought, maybe the tropes, the characters, what I thought about the plot line, how it's written, etc. And then I'll talk about what I gave it out of 5 stars, and then I will say if I would recommend it. But yeah, let's get into it. First book that I read in May was Small Things Like These by Keegan, and this book I read for my book club that I do with my 2 best friends from back home. So we decided, we all put a couple of votes into the group chat and came back with this one. It is small, it's my first Keegan and I really enjoyed it. Enjoyed it is probably a difficult word to say because it's a difficult topic. The synopsis is it follows a man named Bill who is a coal man in 1980s Ireland, and he stumbles across something pretty dark in a convent. He has to decide whether he's going to do something about it. As I mentioned just before, I think it is a really hard topic to work through. Before having read it, I didn't really know much about what was going on in 1980s Ireland at the time, because if you read it, which I won't spoil too much if you decide to read it, there is a note on the text. It is a work of fiction, but it's based around what was happening in Ireland around the time. As I say, I don't want to say too much, although I know that it's a film coming out soon or has already come out. It's definitely an anticipatory atmosphere. You are, as a reader, thinking what the main character Bill will do. In part, I definitely read it hoping for the best, hoping that the character would make the right decision. I gave it 4.5 stars. I would have liked it to have been a little bit longer. I think the point is, or when we were talking about in our book club, we did say that we think the point is you read it and want to go online and read more about it, especially with the note on the text. Part of me as a reader wanted to know more, wanted to know what the ending was. I think the ending was quite ambiguous. I think Keegan did that on purpose so that you went online to read more. It was only around 128 pages, so it didn't take me too long to get through. That was really good for me. Those who know me well will know that although I love contemporary fiction, and in my reading journey right at the beginning, I would say contemporary fiction was my go-to. I think I stumbled upon ACOTAR, for those who know A Coat of Thorn and Roses by Sarah J. Maas, and it very much dwindled from there. I moved on to romantasy and more just traditional romantic books, steamy or spicy books as well. I've read a lot of Elsie Silver. I've read 2 of her series, Chestnut Springs and Rose Hill. My friend recommended reading the Twisted series. I have read Twisted Love. I read that in April, and then read a couple of books for book club, read a couple of contemporary fiction, and then I decided to continue the Twisted series. Those who don't know, by Huang. They are 4 books in the series about 4 friends, romantic and friendships, sort of trials and tribulations that they go through. Although they are, I would say, high on the spice level, it is definitely about more than just that. It's their relationships, their past. There is a more depth to them, I would say, than I thought was going to be, which was really good. I read Twisted Games on my Kindle. I have Kindle Unlimited, and you can get all of the Twisted series for free. So I decided to continue the series. So the second one, Twisted Games, it's a bodyguard romance between Bridget and Reese. And for me, the author can't really go wrong with these books. I think the plot follows it really well. I feel like the characters were really well developed. There are quite a lot of tropes, I would say, in the book. Forced proximity, forbidden romance, bodyguard romance, age gap, slow burn as well, which I really enjoyed. Although I would say bodyguard romance isn't my favorite trope, it was really good. I really enjoyed it. I think after the 4 books, which I'll get to talk about, I would say this is probably my 3rd favorite out of the 4. Their relationship blossomed really well. well and at a good pace compared to one of the other books, which I'll get to. I really liked both of the characters. I liked their dialogue and I liked their development. I feel like Bridget developed quite a bit throughout the book. I gave it 4 stars, and when I was thinking about doing this video, I did think that I could probably have bumped it up to 5. I was comparing it probably too closely to Elsie Silver. Probably a little bit harsh giving it a 4 because I really did enjoy it and I read it quite quickly. I would definitely recommend it to those that like romantic books and, you know, are happy with a bit of spice in their books as well. Then I would definitely recommend. The next book I read was Twisted Hate, which is definitely my favourite book in the Twisted series. I read that on my Kindle as well, and it is a very fiery enemies to lovers of Jules and Josh. Josh is Jules's best friend's brother. The plot works very well. They hate each other, as enemies to lovers ever do. They decide to go into a no strings attached relationship and they hide it from their friends, as is expected. They have really sizzling chemistry, decide that their feelings might border into love. I've read a couple of enemies to lovers and I feel like with this it's really good because their character development is really strong for me. I loved Jules's character. She was very strong-willed, very independent, intelligent character, and Josh kind of was like the thorn in her side. Something that I really enjoyed was that banter. It was quite funny. Some of the things that they said to each other to sort of rile them up was really funny. I would say it is probably the most steamiest in the series, but beyond that, both of the characters had trauma in their life and it really developed that, and you know how they overcame that. And I think that was like a really, not just the steamy element and the romantic and the love side of things, that development was really important. Anna Huang to me can write both equally romantic tension and emotional healing. So tropes in this include enemies to lovers, best friend's brother, close proximity, all the favourites. So not surprising, I gave this 5 stars. I would recommend to read this if you enjoy the steamier side, and if you've already read one of the Twisted, just continue because they're all really good. So yeah, and the last one in the Twisted series I also read, called Twisted Lies. The synopsis is Stella and Christian. Stella is an influencer and one of the 4 friends, very quiet and introverted and doesn't really speak up for herself. So her development is great, I think, in the book. And then there's Christian, who is a morally grey character and is very touch her and I'll kill you. Stella, for her social media, asks Christian to be her fake boyfriend, and as you can imagine, it develops from there into something more. I definitely would say this was my least favourite, although I still did enjoy it. I think out of the 4, it was the one that I found like more fault in. Don't get me wrong, I really liked the characters. I thought they were really well developed. I just think that it was a very, very slow burn compared to the other 3 to really be drawn into the characters. They did develop, and I think especially Stella, I was excited to see more of Christian's character. He is mentioned in the previous 3 books from time to time under morally grey circumstances, as you can imagine. Although they are all typical plots, it was a very typical plot of touch her and I'll kill you. He was very protective, very obsessive, and I did think that was a good plot to have. However, I do think the slow burn, the very slow burn, affected me a little bit more. You tend to find when you read a lot of this genre, as I do, that you'll get maybe about a third, maybe halfway through, and something will happen romantically, which is what, you know, keeps you enticed into the book, which keeps you wanting to read more. Whereas I think that it did drag on probably a little bit too much for me. I do think the pacing definitely had a few issues. I gave this 4 stars, which is why I said about Twisted Games that I do think I'd probably put that at a 5 rather than a 4 because I didn't enjoy this one as much. I do think still read it, especially if you've read the first 3. It almost seems silly not to read the 4th, but that's definitely my mindset. But definitely still recommend for those who've read the first 3. And then into a slightly different genre, I went to the library, as you may see from one of my videos, and I picked up Until August, which I'll put the little graphic here, by Gabriel Garcia Márquez. I have read Nobody Writes to the Colonel, which I really enjoyed. That's all I've read so far. But I'd seen Until August in a bookshop in the UK and I really liked the cover. It was really eye-catching, and I'd heard that it was a posthumous book for Gabriel Garcia Márquez, as you may know, who passed away in 2014. The plot follows a woman named Anna Magdalena, a married woman who annually visits a Caribbean island where she goes to visit her mother's grave, and each year she decides to take a lover. I was intrigued to read, especially because it was a shorter story. I think it was a good option for me after reading the Twisted series to go to a completely different genre and something quick and enjoyable. I know that Gabriel Garcia Márquez writes with such depth and lyrical, as another author that I really like, which I'll talk about. I knew that I would enjoy it. Despite its brevity, I would say it touched on themes of regret, longing, desire, hidden truths, and I did find it really intriguing. Clearly was unfinished, especially having read Nobody Writes to the Colonel and things that I've read online about Gabriel Garcia Márquez. His writing has such depth that I think it definitely had more room for development, which is clear from it being an unfinished novella, and it did definitely encourage me to read more. I would say that the only problem I had is that controversy behind how it was released. The family went against Márquez's wishes for it to be published. I believe before he passed away that he didn't want it to be published, and his son wanted readers to enjoy it, so he went for their enjoyment over his father's intent. So I did give this 3 stars. As it's short, I would recommend it to Márquez fans. I do think it definitely is unfinished and the controversy was a bit unsettled with me. The next one I read, which I'm so excited to talk about, is Andre Aceman's Room on the Sea. For those who know me, and for those who don't, I am the biggest Andre Aceman fan. I went to go see him at a talk in Manchester with one of my best friends. She found it online and I was so excited. He was talking about, actually at the time he was just writing this, so it was just an idea, and he'd just written Gentleman from Peru. There was also a book coming out called My Roman Year. Anyway, so starting from the beginning, ever since reading Call Me By Your Name, I love the book, love the film. I have 2 versions of the book. One of my other best friends got me a lovely cover, which I'll put here. And I have then the traditional version. So I've read Call Me By Your Name, I've read Find Me, I've read The Gentleman from Peru, and I've now read A Room on the Sea. I do at home have, in the UK, My Roman Year, which is a non-fiction book about Andre's family's expulsion from Egypt, and I also have Enigma Variations. I was very happy to get to read this. The synopsis is 2 couples meet at a courthouse who are married to other people. They are on jury duty, but they end up developing a really close connection. They talk every day, so the book is split up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, etc. And they talk about going to Naples. It's very much about desire, about missed opportunities. The couple are in their 60s as well, so I think it's almost nostalgic, and something that I think Andre Aceman is amazing at is nostalgia. Everything that I've read so far, even the film, I think is so nostalgic. The music, the characters. Alongside the nostalgia, I do think his lyricism is so beautiful. He's probably one of the authors that I write the most quotes for when I read his books. Although it might not be very long, like this book and Gentleman from Peru are probably about the same size, maybe about 150 pages. It doesn't need to be long, and that's what I really like about it. Some books, like I mentioned with Keegan, for example, I did feel like I wanted more, and with Andre Aceman, I feel like I don't ever close the book and think that it needed more. there's that longing that exists afterwards where the story sticks with me. The way that it's written sticks with me, and the words and the descriptions really just stay. I am a little bit biased when it comes to Andreas because anything that he writes I will enjoy because of the way that he writes. But I do think, you know, people may be a bit more critical of it. Maybe the characters, obviously the book is about infidelity as well, which not that I agree with, but I do think what I took away from it was that an understanding of selves to people in their 60s, having lived a long life and a life with family and children and travels. And I think it was more about understanding what you missed as a person rather than what was missed in a couple. As always, I gave it 5 stars. Was not surprised. I do try to go into his books not being as biased towards how much I love them, but it really was 5 stars. And the final book that I read in May was for my Perth Women's Book Club, which was Little Women. I found this cover in a shop in Fremantle, which I will put here, and the name, because I can't remember what it was called, but Jamie took me and it was amazing. Had so many different books that I just did not expect. The good thing about the club as well is you get to like stamp the book. I don't think you'll be able to see it because of the light, but you can like stamp it with Perth Women's Book Club and then established in 2023 with a little puncher, which I think is very cute. If you don't already know, the book is from 1886, I believe. I will correct myself here if that's not what it is. I feel like it's 1886 or 1868. But I could be wrong. But my edition was published in 2022. It's about 4 sisters who grow up, and it's about ambition, about morals, a lot about the time as well. The main character, Jo, although all the sisters I believe are main characters in their own right, Jo, the narrator, it's about her and how she stands out from the crowd and what she wants to do with her life. It's very different for the time. And I think, like we were saying in the book club, and someone made a really good point when we met yesterday, even 150 years on, we are still all reading this book, which I think just shows like how important the topics are and how important the plot is and how we feel as people growing up in our lives with love and careers and family and friends, and making sure that we do what we want to do rather than what we think we should do, which I think is a huge part of it. And I did really enjoy it. It was really easy to read for a classic. So the genre for the book club for May was classics. Do often in the UK, and even I've found in Australia, find us in the kids section. So I have also seen the 2019 film with Saoirse Ronan, who plays Jo. The film is brilliant. It's one of my favourite winter films, but the film is a combination of Little Women and the second one, which is Good Wives. But I did really enjoy it. I thought the language was a lot easier to get through and made it more enjoyable for me. I said to the group that I almost felt it was like a play, the way it was written, which was a really good duology between the sisters who did plays. I gave it 4.5 stars when I was at the book club. I think I gave it 4 stars on Goodreads, and would definitely recommend it, especially if you want to get into classics. I think it's a great starting point. And that's all my books for May. But thanks for joining me again. It's lovely to have you here. I hope you stick around. Let me know what you're going to be reading in June or what you read up in May. Let me know what you think about some of the books I've read too. It'd be good to see what other people think. Thanks for being here. See you later.